Neal Brown continues to sabotage himself ahead of the game against UCF and ahead of the final game against Texas Tech. What in the hell's wrong with him? And why would he say the dumb things that he's been saying?
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Good morning, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, your host. This is Locked On West Virginia. Thanks for stopping by this morning. This episode is going to be hosted by FanDuel, guys, in part. Make sure you place that first $5 bet on FanDuel. And if you win that, you get 150 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. Make sure you go to FanDuel.com to get started. And thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen of today, and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. I got to be honest, man. I didn't think Neal Brown would stick his foot in his mouth again this year. I thought he would be a little more measured in his approach, and that's what I get for thinking. He hosts that weekly radio show. I don't watch it very much, partly because there's been a little bit of a lack of interest here the last couple of weeks. And I'm just tired of finding things to not like about him, because I had I had this image of Neal in my head, regardless of the wins and losses. And that's shattered, man. You know, it's almost like how some people feel about Rich Rod to an extent. I don't think Neal's done anything that bad, but certainly he's made me like him less on the way, hopefully, out the door here. Also circulating this morning, guys, before we get going, this just happened while I was getting set up. I saw this. 3 guys is even starting to put in perspective what the next 2 week means. Brad said the next 2 week matters as to what the future of West Virginia football looks like. Hoppy Kirchhoff that says that Neal Brown probably won't survive 5-7. So think that what you will. Let's get to the point here. Last night on the radio show, his weekly radio show, Neal Brown, like it or lump it, said the following.
Squirrel Hill with season.
Squirrel Hill, where's that at? You know that?
Oh, yeah, it's Pittsburgh.
Is it?
Got Pittsburgh area there. With senior day approaching, 5-5 record, many fans feeling disappointed. What do you say to those frustrated with the program's progress?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not going to speak for the fans, because last time I did, that turned into a shitstorm. So, we're not talking about that.
Hopefully the delay was working. Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but so I'll avoid that. Here's the thing, and what I'll say is there's nobody more frustrated with our inconsistencies than myself and our players, and that's the deal. And I'm quick to point out, I was telling somebody this the other day, it's if you're not careful, then
he couldn't just shut up right there.
Negativity will make you believe that, we haven't done anything. We're sitting here while we know. I was telling somebody this the other day, it's if you're not careful, then negativity will make you believe that, we haven't done anything. We're sitting here while we know one will be 5-5, we're not 0-10. And so we've done some good things in some games we've won, but we haven't been consistent. And that's a frustrating thing, because I think in the game of football, one of the highest compliments you can play a team or you can pay an individual is you're consistent, which means you know what you're getting out of them every single game, every single practice, et cetera. And we've not been a consistent football team.
Words to live by, Neal Brown. Unbelievable, man. Now, look, I don't have a problem with every single thing he said, but, I have a problem with the majority of it. First, he said, well, I'm not going to speak for the fans because last time I did that, it caused a shitstorm. And then he proceeds to start another shitstorm. What's wrong with you, Neal? What's wrong with you, brother? The lack of self-awareness, I think, is daunting at this point. Like it's almost like I can't even fathom having an awareness factor like he does. So here's the thing. It's almost like he prefaced the 5-5 comments with the inconsistency comments. almost as a way to justify it. It's like, okay, I'll acknowledge this thing that we haven't been, but here's how I'm really thinking. He does it all the time. If you pay attention to him, he'll say something initially, then he'll get to the real root of what he really feels and how he really feels. And to sit there and say 5-5 isn't the end of the world, to me, just shows why he's been a middling coach. Because at the end of the day, you're not absolutely disgusted with yourself at being 5-5. I want a coach that's disgusted with himself when he's 5-5. I want a coach that wakes up in the morning sick because he's 5-5. I don't want a coach that's like, the weather's nice. I don't want to hear that shit, man. Like, get on down the road with that. Get on down the road, Southern gentlemen. Like, that whole thing you got going on, it ain't working on me no more. I'm done with it, man. Get him the hell up out of our state. How many factory workers, how many of you guys that have worked in the coal mines, that if you woke up and you were happy with middling, would you be able to feed your families, man? I don't know. I don't want to take it there because I feel like this is football and it's not a great comparison. But a lot of us that really love this, man, like, I don't have any other hobbies. I play video games from time to time, but like, I don't have any other hobbies really. This is it. I turned it into a job. But it's because I don't accept less. I record every single day. It's not a great comparison either, but as far as for me and mine, like, I'm going to do what it takes to succeed at this. And there's no conversations that I have with myself that accept any kind of mediocrity. Like, I'm always looking to change it up. I'm always looking to get better somewhere, somehow. And I don't see that with Neal. I heard a story about him when he first got hired at West Virginia that he eats the same thing for lunch every day so that he doesn't have to waste time making a decision about lunch. And I thought, man, that's so cool. I don't believe it now. I used to think that he was built like that. I used to feel he was built like, I hate to bring him up again, but Signetti at Indiana. I win, Google me. Just such a classic line. It's such a classic line. I want to coach like that. I want to coach like Coach Prime. Coach Prime comes out and fights every single reporter that said anything negative about them. And whether you like him, agree with what he says or not, I'll take that over whatever the hell that was last night. No fire, completely defeated, willing to accept mediocrity. Get the hell out of here. I don't buy what you said about inconsistency. I don't buy it. It's just, you got to say that to say what you really feel. Tony also saying on there, like, man, he caught a bad break again this week. This is the second team in a row that's had a bye week. Come on, man. Get out of here. Get out of here with that. It's football. Like, sure, bye weeks help, but I'm pretty sure West Virginia won 2 games on a bye week this year, lost 2 games on a bye week this year. Like, it works both ways. These things are just not forgivable for me. It's almost like he's gaslighting us. It's how I feel. I feel like I'm crazy mad over being 5-5, and you're sitting there saying not to be mad over it. You can't make me feel crazy, Neal Brown. I know what this program and university can be. And if you were, let's say if you were like, I don't know, if you were 5-3 or 6-2, I would totally get that. I would. I mean, it's not like you're not trying to, if you were 3-1, if you were let's say you were 7-3, even 6-4, like you're 500 though, and likely going to finish under 500. I don't know. To me, it's just a really, really, really dumb thing to say. And I don't know how he said that when he said it. I know Tony was sitting there probably thinking, oh no, had to have been. Or I don't know, maybe the love fest he's got for Neal, you know, those guys have been blind. I'm telling you, there's been so many people that I idolized that I have a different viewpoint on now. The way that Tony and Brad and those guys have defended Neal and everything over the weeks, I get that they're in a different position because I get it. Like it would be hard to see a guy and maybe get to know a guy and care about a guy and have to see him every day and watch him work every day and then watch him struggle. And you don't want to be the person to pile on to that. I can totally get that. I mean, I do. I would 1000% probably be hesitant if I were in the same position. But at a certain point, after 6 years, it's like you just have to, it's okay to acknowledge certain truths. It's not piling on. It's just the truth. Just like Hoppy said earlier, he probably can't survive 5-7. And I think that, the change in tone is probably just a direct result of what's happening right now because they haven't said anything like that so far on Three Guys yet this year. I'll play it for you. It's on Voices of Morgantown's profile. Don't hold that against me. I keep losing people every time I use his profile for different things. But he stays up to date on a lot of stuff and is always posting different things, and it's just easy to access it. So plus, Brad is somebody that I said before, he's helped me in the past. And not everybody, and people get mad when I say that. So, but it's not like, am I doing things you don't like? But just because I mentioned somebody, please don't leave me over me mentioning somebody that's helped me or that I don't hate as much as you. That's like the same thing that just happened in the election. Oh, you don't have the exact same opinion as me, so we can't. It's like, come on, man. That's fine. If you want to dislike Voice of Morgantown or hate him, that's your prerogative, but just don't make me do it. I can't stand those kind of people that just because you're not friends with my people, we can't be friends. Like, don't be those kind of people. It's not like I'm on here saying he's the sliced bread and that you should all subscribe to his stuff or anything like that. I'm just saying that he's letting me use this and I'm going to shout him out for it. He deserves to be for letting me use his stuff, right? That's all. It's just common courtesy. Anyway, I'm probably pulled a Neal Brown and got myself in more trouble than I wanted to. But at the end of the day, guys, here's what they said on Three Guys earlier. All right. Oh, you know what? I got to go to break. When we get back, Three Guys had some crazy stuff to say about the Neal Brown situation. We'll talk about that in just a second. This is Locked On West Virginia. If you can't tell, I'm without my mouse. And my mouse died on me, and I can't get to anything fast. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Prize Picks, guys. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's pretty dang good. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win. You get the $50 automatically. It's guaranteed. If you think Justin Jefferson will have more than 83.5 yards this week or Lamar Jackson will have more than 1.5 touchdowns, cook up hot takes with you and your friends and win real money this season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. How do you do it? Well, here's what you do. Go to Prize Picks, guys. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Make sure you do it. All right, we are back. So this is on the Voice of Morgan Down profile. I rolled by this right before I went live, and here's Hoppy saying, "Hey, I don't think you can make it at 5-7."
No question.
Yeah, and that's part of the story, right? And that's why we say that on the West Virginia side in particular, I don't quite care much about UCF and Gus Malzahn, all due respect to whatever they do.
All due respect.
But for this particular part, yeah, this is starting to tell you what the future is going to be for West Virginia football.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And these next 2 weeks matter to what that answer is going to be for a lot of people that are involved. So how does that play into what happens on the field in particular this Saturday? Yeah. That's a huge question. Also impossible to handicap, but a key factor in this game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, just do the math. You could be 7-5. You could be 5-7. Big difference. Big difference. 6-6, middle of the teeter-totter. Kind of teeter-totters like this. No fulcrum, Hoppy. You know fulcrum?
Yes.
Fulcrum makes one either that or that. So 6-6, you're like this. What's that mean?
Means you're teetering at 6-6.
7-5, you're more like this. 5-7.
5-7. It's going to be difficult for Neal Brown to keep his job at 5-7. Fact.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a revelation. That is a flat out barn burner revelation. I hadn't heard that yet. So let's just digest that for a second, because I consider that breaking news. They haven't said anything remotely like that. Nothing. They didn't come close to it this year. It's been defend Neal Brown. It's not as bad as it seems it is. But you know what I've been saying for weeks? The pressure's getting to them all. They might pretend like it's not. It's getting to them. Kuz and I had a little debate about this because he kind of felt like, I don't even know if they care, which is a fair assessment. It's a fair assessment. I think we all had a similar question going on. It's like, it's a fair question. Does this university care about winning anymore? Or is there an outgoing president, no money, and all this question? And I mean, you have to lean towards both. You have to lean towards both. At the end of the day, guys, I think they care, but they're in such a bad spot that they need Neal Brown to be 7-5. They need him to win. They need him to cut him a break here. And look, his greatest quality is winning in the face of it all. Like, it's almost like, in a weird way, if I had to bet one game on somebody to stay alive, it might be Neal Brown, because just when he's on death's doorstep, he'll win the last 2 games and go 7-5. Oh, have mercy, man. It's insanity, right? So look, and they're right. They are right, and we're not happy about the answer. But 7-5 is different than 5-7 or 6-6. Especially if you get a favorable opponent and you win 8 games. I just don't think it's going to be good enough unless you would have to get a Pitt or a Clemson or somebody like that in the bowl game, beat somebody big in the bowl game for fans to think, okay, we've got some momentum heading in the next year. But at the end of the day, it's still, to me, not going to be good enough, even at 7-5. But the university will have everything they need to keep him at that. And I think, like they said, 6-6 is like, it just depends on what that looks like. If you win this week at UCF, but you get destroyed by Texas Tech, let's say you lose by 4 or 5 scores, or let's say it's a 3-point game. Those two outcomes matter distinctly. And I don't, here's what makes me mad. If it's that razor thin of a margin, it tells me this, that even if this team goes 7-5, you don't believe in Neal Brown, but you would rather keep Neal Brown at the expense of not having to pay that buyout over your belief that he's not the guy. That's what it sounds like to me. Let me know if you agree down below. Drop a comment below. Let me know how you feel about that statement. I think West Virginia University is in a spot financially where they need Neal Brown to bail them out by winning these last 2 games. so that they can keep him and give him $20 million next year for a roster to do the full thing, right? And if he doesn't do that, he's gone. I think he's gone. But it says more to me, like I said, about their feelings. Like, if it's this close, it shouldn't really matter what he does. 5, 6, 7, even 8. I truly believe, like, there are people in that building that know he's not the guy, but realize the university's in a bad spot. I think that's just what it is. So they just know that they'll lose a lot more by keeping him at 5 and 7 than they will at 7 and 5. At least you can stand on something a little bit if he's 7 and 5. Like, I get it too. Like, you when you're like, because the talking heads will have something to say. Like, they'll say, look, he won his last 2 games, maybe his last 3 with the bowl game. And you won 9 and 8 or 9 and 7, 9 and 7 in consecutive seasons. You could even argue that he's building something there, from a talking heads perspective. Not saying that's how I feel. And they need that fuel to project that on us. So we're in a weird spot, aren't we, guys? Because at the end of the day, I text with Xavier Bosley, TJ Jackson, those guys, and I can't root against those guys, but I can simultaneously realize that it's best to move on from Neal Brown. I can't wait for this all to be over with and decided. Whether it's we keep him or not, at least I know how to, as a fan, perform from here on. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, let's talk a little bit more about what they said just now. Just say it out loud again. The first time ever we've ever heard the guys over at 3 guys actually say, like, he might be gone. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets concentrated into a toxic byproduct in the gut, and it's this byproduct and not dehydration that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, then drink responsibly and feel your best tomorrow. I don't drink, but here's how it works. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and hydrate. Get a good night's sleep. And then enjoy your next day. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is back with 100% money guarantee back to you if you're unsatisfied for any reason. They'll refund your money, no questions asked, but just remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. And it's also brought to you by FanDuel, guys. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. That's if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you'll need to place live bets on the NFL and all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, people live play-by-play, and more on the same page you place your bets. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started, and you'll get $150 if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. And we're back. We're back. So I agree with what Brad says in the comments. I'm not going to call anybody a fan or not a real fan, but I do agree that we got to cheer these guys on the last 2 games. It's going to, at the end of the day, guys, rooting against the team is not the way. I know it's a weird conundrum, but I just think we have to hope that cooler heads will prevail and that he's gone kind of no matter what. I hope that's not a real bad thing to say, but it's kind of how I believe. So if you missed it, I don't have it anymore, but Hoppy Kirchhoff said Neal Brown won't be back likely if he goes 5 and 7. And then Brad alluded to it as well, if you paid attention. Brad Howe. He said the next 2 weeks are going to be integral in determining what's going to happen with the future of West Virginia. He went so far as to say, not talking about UCF here, I'm talking about West Virginia. The next 2 weeks are going to be integral. And that's a big tune change from just last week, right? So I think it's very important to note that things are definitely on teeter-totter mode right now, and a loss could be insurmountable here. So interesting. Couple that with the comments from Neal Brown last night. If you're just getting in, Neal Brown said, hey, look, 5-5, it could be 0-10. It's almost like the negative. His exact words, I think, were like, I'm not going to quote, but this is it in a nutshell. Look, we're not 0-10. Could be worse. At least we haven't lost every game, but the negativity would make you think so, right? And I think that sent some people. So at the end of the day, Green, you're only helping my argument. Like, you do no harm by coming in here and saying that. Thanks for the click, by the way. We want him gone. So at the end of the day, like, your comments do nothing but fuel my fire and my argument. So thank you. Neal Brown, at the end of the day, man, can't keep his own foot out of his own mouth. Don't know why, don't know how. But, just listen to it. He prefaces everything he wants to say with something about himself critical. Like this one, it was, we haven't been consistent, and then the real boom gets laid down. Could be 0-10, could be worse. Yeah, that's what you really thought. The critical, all that stuff you said about yourself, you didn't mean that. Quit pretending like you did. Here's how you really feel. You play the victim all the time. You've got all these excuses, whether it's injuries, referees, bye week. I can go on and on and on. But we're done listening to him, man. Done listening to it. So here we go. All right, guys. That's all I got for today. I'll be back on later tonight, probably with some basketball stuff or something. Who knows? Neal might say something else or do something else. Then we got post-game tomorrow after the game. That'll be big. Make sure you're here for it. Until then, guys, thanks for coming in. This episode's over. Have a great afternoon. I'm out.